So to answer the question of today's video about what is the nature of God realization, it is not that suddenly the finite mind or an individual becomes God or the infinite. No, not in that sense. Now we all know the general idea for God from the scriptures and also from our own understanding as to what should qualify as God. In the broadest sense, God is considered to be omnipresent, omnipotent, and omniscient. That means that there is no space that God is not. Second, there is nothing beyond God's potency or capabilities. That just implies unlimited power of action. And lastly, God is all-knowing. That implies two things. There is no knowledge and that there is no time outside God's scope. Now, if we reflect on these implications for a bit, we'll realize that it pretty much summarizes all of the possible scope of existence of this universe or even multiverses and everything included in them, which, if you also come to think of it, marks the limit of our imagination. But the main thing to gather from these above general attributes is that, ironically, they become useless in describing God's real nature. Because if God transcends them, then they lose their intended utility for description. In essence, simply implying that God is just infinite, that is not bound or can be described by any imaginable parameters. Because God is the ground, so to say, of existence itself, and irreducible to anything else further, or in other words, everything that can exist can be described only in terms of God alone as the fundamental reality. Now, if you've seen my first video, I raised this question that if God is infinite, how can a finite mind as ourselves ever comprehend it? And in the last recent video, I used the example of our inability to see our own physical face, just to illustrate a simple fact that we can never see our own selves, but we do see our reflection and accept it, because it is the closest we can come to objectifying a subject. Because objectifying a subject is impossible. The observer is always separate from the observed and can only play the role of observing. So how can the ultimate reality, the ultimate subject, and the ground of all that is God be realized then? There is a way, and it is here and now. You are it. You are that ultimate reality, right here, right now. Because there are no other or parts in the infinite. We all are that by just logical implication. But we have to be careful, because we are not that as this person alone, because that will just aggrandize the finite ego for something that it is not capable of at all, or even close. Because the finite and the infinite are total opposites. Just like you as the person and your reflection in the mirror are not the same reality. But to realize this great import in experience takes a little bit of work for the finite being that we are. For this episode, we'll just be exploring the reasoning side of it. And for the experience side, we'll get into a future video. Let's consider the analogy of an ocean. An analogy that is widely used in Eastern scriptures. And I'll just reiterate again that all analogies have their limitations. And so we only have to understand their import and not dissect or argue their limitations. So when waves arise in an ocean, they take a form and exist for a duration, only to collapse back. The existence of everything that has a spatial form and a time component has a limited existence. This is how we know our universe and laws to be. There's a beginning and there is an end. And if you see closely, there's never a separation of the wave from the rest of the ocean at any time during this process. The wave as a form only came, existed for a while, and then disappeared back into the ocean. There's no point in space or time in the body of the ocean where one thing is separate from the other. Even the flora and the fauna that exist arise in the ocean out of various ingredients already available in it, and then only to die and decay back to the ocean. The absolute reality is exactly like that. Instead, replace the ocean of water with an ocean of pure consciousness, being, or principal existence. With an exception, of course, unlike the analogy of the ocean of water, pure consciousness has no bounds or limits, as it is infinite, undivided, and seamless. There's no outside or inside pure being, because everything that could ever exist, including space-time or even multiple versions of it, is within this pure being. Just as a thought experiment, if by some mechanism entities like universe could exist as separate entities, what would happen? The infinite will not be infinite or undivided anymore, and there will be no thing as the ultimate reality, implying that this pure being is now another finite entity like the universe. And so now we need to introduce another entity that now supports both of their existence as the fundamental. There has to be a ground for the building to exist. If the stars and the planets are supported by the scaffolding of space-time of the universe, which forms the substrate, and if pure being is now no longer the substrate for the universe itself, then now there must be a substrate for both of them. And by now you must see the endless rabbit hole. Endless is the essence of this exercise. Ultimately, we come down to an endless, infinite entity. And we can call it infinite existence, or simply referred to as God, which also fulfills our three criterion we set out in the beginning to qualify as the ultimate reality. And another observation to entertain here is that if our existence was separate and independent from the ultimate, then why be limited in space or time? We should be able to exist forever and anywhere by default as a feature. But that is not what we see. Everything around us, including us, is localized or characterized by finite space-time coordinates and is ever-changing, coming into existence and then totally disappearing out of existence. So why the directional flow? Exactly like a wave that arises and collapses, implying that the wave of this universe needs something to collapse back into, since it is extending from something fundamental and then eventually going back into something. The passing of time itself, as it is referred, passing, indicates that the previous moment is no longer available. Quantum physics has already indicated that time to be an illusion. But it is not just time. Everything around us is that illusion. Not in a dream-like sense that we can totally discard, because this is somehow feels more real. The parameters for the reality we call this world are set in place for the experience that we are having right now. It is just that. But in a dream, those parameters are compressed and distorted and so is our experience there. But both of these realities are apparent and essentially experience alone, nothing else. We experience the outside world totally through our senses. Remove those senses, and what do you have? Just try to imagine. It is nothing. In the dream world, which is more subtle, or for better understanding, let's say entirely running on software of the mind, because the mind itself can generate the entire environment of the dream, including you as the subject, and along with other people, objects, entire storylines, all by itself. Remove all the contents of the dream. What is left? Try to imagine. Nothing. That nothing of the dream world and the nothing of the waking world are one and the same. Now that nothing is just a seed, it is essentially the seed of primal supreme ignorance. Just like a seed of a plant that is unmanifested and yet to bloom, so is our experience in that state, lying dormant. But we will talk about ignorance in a separate video, as it is a whole mountain on its own. But what we are seeking when we refer to realizing the ultimate reality is even beyond this ignorance. That reality is not a nothing. In fact, it is the only reality present in all the experiences of the waking world or the fictional dream world, and even the unmanifested blankness of the deep sleep. When we experience that reality, which is our true nature, we are out of the limitations of time and space. They don't exist there. We realize that they were all a made-up concept for the sake of these worlds to exist. It is in that supreme goal where the finite person that we experience ourselves to be is merged back, like the wave of water that collapses back into the ocean. But in our case, it is the ocean of the ultimate reality, which is pure being and pure consciousness. So to answer the question of today's video about what is the nature of God realization, it is not that suddenly the finite mind or an individual becomes God or the infinite. No, not in that sense. But what then? The finite mind, deep in meditation or through direct knowledge, which is in the form of experience, realizes two things. First, the finite separation was an illusion in the first place. It never existed. Just like the wave was never separated from the ocean, all the while it was rising up from the surface. Second, and the most important one, is that the finite and the infinite are one and the same. Just as in the case of the ocean analogy, the ocean and the wave both are essentially nothing but water. Ocean and a wave is just a form and name. Similarly, in our case of the finite and the infinite, God is a concept, man is a concept, outside world is a concept, and they are all nothing but essentially one pure being, consciousness and existence. Awareness rises as a wave in the form of mind, the personality, and the body. And that same awareness, when rests as the vast infinite ocean, is God. Awareness or pure being is the only reality ever. All of it, the entire dream of the universe, including God as the creator, preserver, and destroyer, man, and this world, is happening as an appearance in this one reality. It is what Meister Eckhart meant when he said, "The ground of my being and God's being are the same." Or when Jesus said, "I and my Father are one." He didn't mean God, the Creator in heaven, and Jesus, the man, were one and the same. Not that. But they were one and the same as pure infinite being and consciousness. And the same inference when he said, "Kingdom of God is within all of us." He meant that infinite reality. I'll leave you with this final thought. The separation we feel from the infinite as this individual, or the vast world of objects outside, is only but a temporary one, just a passing existence. Because the infinite can only be regarded so, as it can never be divided in the first place. And deep down, we all have an inkling of it. That is how we feel connected to everything around us. That is why we are so afraid to die. Our entire life's purpose is to just extend this bodily existence. Because unconsciously, we know of our infinite origin, despite the finiteness we temporarily experience. It is just hidden from us at the moment, only to be revealed. God bless you all, and peace.